I've told my disfellowshipping story before, but since I'm starting a nonprofit company soon, I figure it's time to tell it again. As a Jehovah's Witness, I wasn't allowed to have outsider friends. I wasn't allowed to hang out with anybody who wasn't also a Jehovah's Witness. There were some Jehovah's Witnesses in the congregation who were my age, but not many. And they didn't like me anyways. That meant I was completely alone through my entire childhood. I wasn't allowed to have any friends. Not to mention the fact that I was homeschooled for a few years. That didn't help the isolation problem at all. So when I finally left the religion when I was 18, I didn't have anywhere to go. I knew this girl from school, so when I got kicked out of my house for getting disfellowshipped, I called her up. She said I could come over. I had to crawl in her bedroom window so her grandparents didn't know I was there. I hid in her bedroom for 2 weeks, sneaking out to go to work at Burger King every day. Do you have any idea how hard it is to hide in somebody's bedroom? It sounds hard to do at its face, but I bet you haven't thought it out logistically. I had to piss in old Burger King cups and Gatorade bottles. She would take her dinner to her bedroom every night so I could eat. It was either that or live on the street. I didn't even have a cell phone. I had literally nothing except for the clothes on my back. One pair of clothes. I had to wear one of her shirts while she washed mine. And right now, there are 2.5 million other children in that same situation in the US. Many of them are there because of Jehovah's Witnesses, or because of Scientology, or the NIFB, because their parents are disgusted by them, because they don't believe exactly as they do anymore. That's why I'm starting a nonprofit, to help people in that situation. Nobody should have to go through that. It's wrong. The nonprofit is obviously starting out very small, almost completely donation-based, except for what I can feed into it from my own money. So I plan to do a few key things to start. First and foremost, to be in the program, the kids will have to agree to use an online therapy system, like BetterHelp. I'll pay for a monthly subscription for them through the charity. And they're going to have some way to communicate with the therapist and be a part of a larger online ex-cult member community. So in addition to paying for a subscription to online therapy, I'm going to make sure they have a decent smartphone that'll allow them to use Discord, Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit. And finally, I'm going to pay for cell phone service for them. The program will last 1 year per kid, contingent on the fact that they continue to communicate with their therapist. They can reapply the following year, and we'll assess if we can afford to keep them on after that. It'll cost a total of about $2,500 per year per kid, depending on their situation. As I said, I intend to help with other stuff too, if we get enough financial assistance from donors. I can't accept donations until the company is approved by the IRS, but if you check the website apostaterefuge.org, you can find out if we've been approved to accept donations yet. If we haven't, you can add your name to the list from the website, and I'll send an email out when it's time. This election has been an interesting one, to say the least. At this point, as far as I'm concerned, there are two types of people. The type who saw the scam early on, and the type who still don't see it. Take a look at this clip from Hillary Clinton in 2016.
You know, every time Donald thinks things are not going in his direction, he claims whatever it is rigged against him. The FBI conducted a year-long investigation into my emails. They concluded there was no case. He said the FBI was rigged. He lost the Iowa caucus. He lost the Wisconsin primary. He said the Republican primary was rigged against him. Then Trump University gets sued for fraud and racketeering. He claims the court system and the federal judge is rigged against him. There was even a time when he didn't get an Emmy for his TV program 3 years in a row, and he started tweeting that the Emmys were rigged against him.
Should have gotten it.
This is a mindset. This is how Donald thinks. And it's funny, but it's also really troubling.
Okay.
You know, that is not the way our democracy works. We've been around for 240 years. We've had free and fair elections. We've accepted the outcomes when we may not have liked them. And that is what must be expected of anyone standing on a debate stage during a general election.
Trump's plans seem to be blatantly obvious to me. Seriously, how do people not see straight through what he's doing right now? But what he's doing has had an unintended side effect. He's fracturing the Republican Party. Even if they aren't Trump supporters, lots of Republicans have completely lost faith in the election process. And Republicans who don't stand up and defend Trump are viewed as Democrat sympathizers. Even though Trump came out on stage the other day and encouraged people to vote in the Senate runoffs in Georgia, it doesn't matter. His Stop the Steal campaign has taken on a life of its own. A guy named Alexander, who apparently used to go by Ali Akbar, is an organizer for some of the pro-Trump events. He and others came out and said they'd force the state legislatures to send Republican electors to the Electoral College to ensure Trump stays president. Shit's getting bizarre, man. As if it wasn't already. Jesse Lee Peterson. Some of you may have heard of him before. Well, I don't really know how to describe him. He's an odd bird, probably the nicest description I could give. He's a Republican, he's black, and he's a white supremacist. Didn't know that combination was possible? Turns out it is. We've got a few clips to go through. He's a little upset that Trump picked a woman for the Supreme Court. He loves that it's conservative now, but wishes it wasn't Amy Coney Barrett. He thinks a man would do a better job. Check this out.
I often hear people asking me, when will the world end? When is the end time? Something like that, right? What are the signs of the end time? This is a sign of it. Women taking over, the end time is near. Because when women take over, everything that's wrong comes to the forefront. Homosexuality, same-sex marriage, so-called same-sex marriage, LGBTQ, STD, everything comes to the forefront. Men become weaker. Those are signs of the end time. When women take over, you better find yourself a rock to hide behind.
Not to nitpick, but I think he listed the exact same thing 3 times. Homosexuality, gay marriage, and the LGBT. How was that a sign of the end times? Who told him that? Even Jehovah's Witnesses go a little more in depth. Equality is not a sign of the end times. I was under the impression that war, pestilence, famine, and earthquakes were a sign of the end. You know, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? Those things that have existed since the dawn of time? I guess I was mistaken. It's women being in positions of authority. Pastor Greg Locke has been on my radar for a while, but I've never done a piece on him before. He's your standard hate preacher cult leader. He's also pro-Trump, anti-vax, and believes the virus is a hoax. The nutbag trifecta. Well, CNN decided to do a piece on him recently, and he was not happy about it. He tweeted about it. He said, quote, "So CNN just left our church. A short interview turned into a 45-minute smackdown about our church remaining open during COVID and my refusal to take a vaccine. It will be a hit piece without question." End quote. I'm sorry, man. If you don't want the news to report how fucking stupid you are, then try not being so fucking stupid. And damaging. If you wanted to do this on your own time, with your own life, be my guest. But you're in a position of authority. It's your responsibility to look out for the best interests and well-being of your congregation. Instead, you're telling them the vaccines aren't safe and masks are dangerous. These people are super spreaders. I hope they go down as the greatest villains in U.S. history. Michele Bachmann is back in the news. She did a pro-Trump event recently at Salem Baptist Church in Dalton, Georgia. Here's what she said, quote, "From the political point of view, from the legal point of view, from the moral point of view, America is not on board with Joe Biden as the next president of the United States." End quote. First of all, it doesn't really matter if America is on board or not. That's what's going to happen, whether she likes that or not. But for the record, he won, period. Even the Attorney General's Justice Department came out and said there was no systemic fraud. Biden won, whether you like that or not. She went on to say, quote, "We're not there, and the reason why we're not there is because we're not that dumb in the United States, because, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, this man did not get the votes on election night. It didn't happen. Donald Trump got the votes on election night. So why would we be like drones, chumps, and fools to go along with this?" End quote. Ignoring the glaring run-on sentences while she talks about how dumb she isn't, I want to point out that people who aren't dumb don't usually have to tell you how dumb they aren't. Scary people don't usually have to tell you how scary they are. If you're trying to convince somebody you aren't stupid as dog shit, then you're most likely stupid as dog shit. And as for the last thing she said, Trump had the votes on election night? That's right, he did, when 20% of the votes were counted. Are we talking midnight on election night in Hawaii or in New York? You must realize the U.S. stretches across multiple time zones, right? I thought the goal of democracy was to count votes until we have a winner. Why would we stop until all the votes are counted? I don't really care how long it takes. This time, it happened to take about a week before we had a clear, decisive answer to who won. It was Joe Biden. Facts don't care about your feelings, Michele.